Self-respect is one of the most valuable things as a man that you can ever have in your life. And there are no shortcuts in order to gain it. What I've learned in life is that shortcuts are short-lived, and that's across the board. Doesn't matter what you're engaging in. So somebody recently just asked me, they were like, is there something that I can do, like a shortcut that I can gain self-respect? And my understanding of what he meant when he was asking was that he was asking, is there like maybe you go inside, you flip a switch in your mind, and then you start to think differently about yourself? Or is there, a way that you can go about thinking about yourself to where eventually you start believing it and living it? And while there is some truth to both of those things, the answer to both of those things is actually yes. It is just that simple in a certain perspective. It is that simple. But the overall answer is no, it's not. So there is a surefire method to gaining self-respect as a man, though. This is a surefire method to gaining self-respect as a man. It is simple. That does not mean it's going to be easy. It will take a lot of effort, a lot of work. Time, effort, consistency, and a willingness to suffer will all be necessary in making sure you do the things that you're supposed to be doing in order to gain self-respect. This is a surefire fucking method. I give you my word. So what is this method? What is this magic elixir? This amazing recipe of learning to respect yourself? You must brutally and efficiently and effectively attack the things about yourself that you do not like. Now, I know that sounds kind of like no duh, right? My whole life has been about waging war in some way. I was in a gang when I was young. I sold drugs. I went to prison. I've had multiple businesses. Everything about my life in some way has been about waging war. There was even a point where I was just waging war against the world itself in the way that I lived my life. And I'm aware of that. But I've also waged war against myself plenty of times. And so one of the things that allows me to feel the way that I feel about myself, to move through the world the way that I do, even though I have made countless mistakes in this life. I have crossed countless boundaries that should not have been crossed in this life. I have gone so far down the path of darkness in my life that most people would probably feel or think that I shouldn't even feel like I have the right to return to the sun, that I shouldn't even ever be able to bathe in the light again. Now that's true. But the reason is because even though I went down all these dark paths, even though I made all these mistakes, I consistently waged war upon myself. So anything that I did not like about myself, I have waged war on. Now, when I was really young, those things would be as simple as experiencing fear and freezing instead of acting. Man, when I was super young and that happened to me, and I didn't respond the way I thought I should respond, man, I made sure that I never did that again. I made sure of it. I made sure that the moment that I felt fear became a trigger. So for me, fear is a trigger. Now, it is difficult to make me feel fear because of everything that I've been through. But you will know if I'm afraid in any shape, way, form, or fashion. And usually it's a fear of losing control of the situation. As long as I feel like I'm in control, regardless of how chaotic or how violent the situation or how tense the situation seems to be, as long as I feel like I have control over the situation as a whole, I'm usually fine. But the moment I feel that control slipping away, I will react, and I react immediately, and I will not stop until I feel safe again. So fear is actually a trigger for me. So when I was young, that was one thing that I had to attack about myself. When I was coming up in my early teens, I was led to believe that I was lazy. So, and maybe, I don't think any more than any other very young, teen and tween young man. But in my middle teens, we could say, I learned to attack that. I learned to make sure that nobody could ever say that I was lazy. You couldn't say that because I wasn't doing things that lazy people do. Whatever I thought lazy people did, I did not do those things. And I carry that forth till this day. I don't, I'm so peculiar about things like the way that I take out the trash, I never just push it down. Doesn't matter what time it is, doesn't matter how cold it is, I fucking tie that shit up and take it out, right? So I make sure to attack those things. It doesn't matter. And then when I learned, so let's backtrack a little bit. Then when I learned that I wasn't living life in the appropriate manner. And I've learned this multiple times over my life. Many times I figured out that I was not living life in an appropriate manner. And I learned to rearrange my thought processes. I learned to rearrange my triggers, my habits, my behaviors, the way that I engaged in life, the way that I engaged with other people, the way that I engaged with myself. I learned to attack every one of those things until I was a different human being. I have consistently become a different human being time after time after time after time in my life. And how I did that was waging war upon myself. You have to viciously and brutally attack the things that you do not like about yourself. It doesn't matter what it is. There are countless things that you don't like about yourself. And you have to attack those things with everything that you have. And I don't care how good it feels to just slide right back into those same habits. I'm not gonna be lazy anymore. I'm gonna live a life that nobody could ever say that I'm lazy. But it's Saturday morning and I'm tired and I've worked so hard and I deserve to sleep in. I would never make that concession. And you have to come to that same point. If you don't want to be seen as lazy, if you want to be respected, you want to be admired, you want to respect yourself, then you can never allow those small transgressions to happen. Now, there is a very, very, very different situation if you are legitimately just beat the fuck up. You've been working out like a maniac, your job is difficult, and you are legitimately beat up, and your body requires the extra time to sleep. That happens. That sometimes does happen. I agree that happens at times. But usually that's not the same thing as you sleeping in, and you know the difference. You know the difference. You know when you're making that concession. So my point is, regardless of what you care or what you think about yourself, regardless of how you portray yourself to others, 100%, there's a number of fucking things that you don't like about yourself. We all are like that. The difference is, are you willing to do something about it? And if you want to have the ability to just generate self-respect, internally generate it, you don't have to work on it. You don't have to manifest it. You don't have to do any of those things. You just create yourself into the person that you would rather be, the person that you want to be. The easiest way to do that, don't worry about adding anything. I've mentioned this before, man. You multiply the things in your life by actually subtracting things first. So don't worry about addition. Don't worry about the things that you have to add. Don't worry about the things that you have to learn. Don't worry about the things you have to do. None of those things. Instead, worry about what you have to take away. I don't like that I do this habit. Stop doing that habit. Regardless of what the circumstances are. Just don't do that habit anymore. I don't like how when this situation transpires, I either behave this way, I'm triggered like this, I feel this way, any of those things, right? I do not like that about myself. I don't like how I think about myself. It doesn't matter what it is. You work to change those things. Another thing for me, I have learned to be a voracious reader. Now, I don't read as much anymore because I got too much damn work to do. I'm gonna be real with you. But I like to read, I love to read. Believe it or not, there was a time when I really couldn't read. And it wasn't that I couldn't actually read, it was that I could not concentrate. I could not focus on the things that I was reading. And I had to fix that problem, and I knew it was something that I needed to fix. So I was just brutal about it with myself. I allowed no concessions. I would sit down, I would start to read a book, and what would happen is, and I hear this from countless people all the time, I'm reading, but my brain would fucking just go somewhere else. I don't even know what, I would be thinking about something, but I'm still reading it. But I'm not reading it. My eyes are just going across because I don't remember anything that I just read. So I recognized that I had this habit, and I would tell myself in my head, no. I would say it in my head, but I would be like, no. I would go back and I would find the last thing that I remembered reading, and I would start reading from there again. And I would do it, 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 and I would fucking do the same thing. And I would say, no, and I would go back. Man, I remember there was times where I swear to God, it would happen like 3 times in a row, and I'd have to go back to the same spot each time. So I recognized I really had a problem at this point, right? But my point is, I would allow myself no concessions. I would tell myself no, and I would go back to the last thing that I read, and I would read it again. Because what I would do before is when I recognized that I would do that, I would just start reading right from where I was at before. Now, what are the odds that I'm comprehending any of this stuff or retaining any of this stuff that I'm reading if I'm just randomly skipping large segments of it? Very fucking little. Elia, I've mentioned this a number of times. I run every week. Elia has witnessed me forget to bring my shoes. Now, the first time I forgot to bring my running shoes, I was like, okay, maybe it's a sign. I had just had blood drawn. They told me not to do anything, and I was going to do it anyways. Maybe it was a sign. Maybe I wasn't supposed to do this, and I was putting myself at risk. I accepted that one because of the blood. So I was like, maybe this is just, in the back of my mind, I knew I shouldn't do that. But then I fucking forgot my shoes again, like 2 or 3 weeks later. Elia witnessed this. He watched me do it. I did not accept that. I absolutely did not accept it. I ran in, first I tried to run in hard shoes, and that fucked my feet up too. That fucked my feet up. So then I tried to run barefoot, and I just ran as long as I could barefoot, and I fucked my feet up. I fucked them up. But my point was is I allowed myself no concessions in that moment. Now I know for other people that's probably like, oh, that's too far. Why would you do that? That's dumb. Little keyboard warriors that don't do shit with themselves. That you guys got opinions. But the truth is I did that because I could not allow myself. I've come to a point where I can no longer allow myself to have excuses. But what I didn't, so I ran those ones. I mean, my feet were messed up for weeks, if not a couple of months. But you know what I did after that? After I left the fucking gym that day? Oh man, I went straight to the store, bought another pair of running shoes, and keep them in the trunk of my car. So I could never be caught without running shoes again. I would have to come in a different car in order to be able to do that. So, you have to come to this point where you're just brutal, but you're effective. You're vicious about the way you attack the things that you do not like in yourself. And it doesn't matter how simple or how minor or any of those things it seems, even to yourself, but especially to other people. You have to hold yourself to the highest levels of standards you can possibly fucking fathom. And you have to hold yourself to them. So when you make a mistake, then you have to pay the consequences for it. Like I did when I forgot my running shoes the second time. When you're attacking something about yourself that you don't like, that you want to fix, like I did with my reading, and I would just go back and at this point, so I went from half-ass being able to read a book in a couple of weeks to not really being able to read a book. Like, man, it would take me forever to finish a book. But you know what I can do now? I can read a book all the way through with no issues. Now I can read a book from beginning to end with no issues. And the only time my brain will wander off is if I have a legitimate thought about something else that probably should be getting taken care of. At which point I will get up, I either think about, no, I can handle that later for this reason, or I'm like, no, I need to handle that right now. I go handle it and I can come back to my book. My point is I learn from my mistakes. I would never allow anyone, especially myself, to think of myself as lazy. So I don't put myself in positions where I would feel about myself or think about myself or for others to judge me as lazy. So you want a surefire method? You want a surefire path to feeling self-respect? Man, viciously and brutally attack the things about yourself that you don't like. If there's too many and you can't attack them all at once, that's perfectly fine. Pick the biggest one and attack that one first. And do not allow yourself any concessions. Do not do it. Man, if you're saying that you're never going to be lazy again, and I don't care how good it feels on that Saturday or Sunday morning, man, I don't care how good that bed feels. You get your bitch ass up. You get the fuck up. Women are like, oh no, the bed feels too good. Children are like, oh no, the bed feels too good. Men, get the fuck up. So whatever it is about yourself, I think this is, if we run it into and correlate it to, when you hear a bunch of people and a bunch of men especially, and they're like, well, I don't think depression is real because all you have to do is, work, you can work your way out of depression is basically what it is. And it's true. In therapy, the first thing that they would do is behavioral activation, right? They're going to tell you to get up and get moving and do things. So there obviously is some truth to it, even from that side of the aisle, which I don't agree with most of their shit. My point is, because if you don't like being depressed, then you get up and you do something about it. You just start working to do something about it. Eventually, you can overcome it. I don't want to hear how debilitating it is. I don't care. That's not the point of this conversation. My point is, whatever it is that you don't like about yourself, I'm assuring you right here, right now, you can outwork whatever those issues are that you don't like about yourself. As you consistently outwork them and maintain your ability to be above and beyond them, you will start to respect yourself. This is the surest fire method that I know of to gain self-respect. Consistently wage war upon yourself. And anything that you don't like about yourself, man, get rid of that shit. Viciously and brutally, completely in a violent fashion, get rid of those things about yourself.